My dad bought these for me when I graduated from graduate school.
And those are Hank Aaron's cleats?
Yeah.
Spikes.
Yeah, the old school. Milwaukee. Last season in Milwaukee.
Now, how did you become a Pirates fan? You were born in Boston?
No. Actually, I was born in France.
You were born in France, okay.
My father was military, and he was from Sharon, Pennsylvania. And he grew up a Pirates and Indian fan. His mom was a big Indians fan. They had season tickets. So he went to all the Cleveland games with his mom, and his aunt was a Pirates fan. So she drug him to all the Pirate games. So my dad saw all the greats from 1940 up to about 1960.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
there's some really good players in there.
So I grew up, hearing stories about the great Indian teams in the 50s. And then, of course, the Pirates in 71, that's when I really fell in love with baseball. And, it was like, for me, the Pirates were my thing because I come from a biracial couple. My mother's Mexican and my father's white. So in my house, we always had Dominican people over, Cuban people, Mexican people. There's always Spanish being spoken. A lot of music in the house. My dad listened to Miles Davis and Carlos Santana. My mom listened to Celia Cruz, Janis Joplin, and Aretha Franklin. And that Pirates team was so diverse.
Extremely diverse. Extremely diverse.
In terms of their personalities, their ethnicities, everything about them was totally different, but they blended. And actually, so in 71, watching them do what they did, and I was a Clemente guy, it was kind of reflected what was going on in my house. So I don't know, it was just, that team was just so much fun to watch as a kid. For me, I was born in 63. So in 71, I was 8. And my dad was in the military. We lived on post. And, there wasn't a whole lot of biracial couples at that time period. So my friends would come over, the guys I played Little League with and T-ball with, my mother always spoke Spanish to me, and I always answered in English. And I never learned to speak Spanish, unfortunately. It kills me to this day. When people talk about me in Spanish, I have an idea what they're saying, but I can't really converse because I'm a bad Mexican. But anyway, I remember my friends would look at me like, what in the world is she saying to you? Like it was from another planet. And then after the 71 World Series, I remember playing ball with my friends, and instead of saying I got it, it was yo tengo.
What are some of your fondest memories from your youth regarding baseball?
Baseball, well, so that first game that I went to at Fenway in 1970 was against the Angels. I'd never been to a game before. My dad had just come back from Vietnam. So it was the first thing he and I did together after that. It was pretty cool. We got there really early, and it's obviously my first game, and we were like, there's maybe 50 people in the ballpark. I was like, what in the heck are we doing here this early? And he said, real fans, go to batting practice. I remember we were sitting there watching, and there was a guy in left field. Another guy hitting fungos off the wall, and he catches the ball, spin and throw over and over to second base. And I said, what's he doing? My dad said, being Yaz. In Massachusetts, I was in Little League, and Tony Canigliaro was serving in the reserves. And my dad met him, and he actually brought him to our practice. And Tony Canigliaro coached us for a day. And I'm a pack rat. I have everything I've ever had in baseball from the time I was a little kid, but I cannot find that damn Canigliaro autograph. I've won a 1970 Topps, and for 20 years I haven't been able to find it. It's somewhere around here, but so that was really cool. Watching Hank Aaron hit 714, that was awesome. 715. And, I remember watching that on Game of the Week. Just exciting watching it with my dad. 75 World Series. That was awesome. But I think, for me, the funnest baseball event for that time period was obviously the 71 World Series. So 71 World Series, that team, they weren't supposed to win. They were the underdogs. And they came back, it was exciting to watch that and realize what it meant. So.
And that Baltimore pitching staff, 4 20-game winners, you rarely see any team with 4 20-game winners these days, let alone.
They were the last, weren't they?
They may have been one of the last ones.
It was McNally, Dobson, Palmer and Cuellar.
You named your son Aaron Clemente after two of the greatest baseball players in history. How did you learn about those two players growing up when games weren't as readily available as they are today?
Well, like I said, my father's a huge baseball fan. He's a big influence. So we would read the box scores together, and I'd read the newspaper with my dad. We watched Saturday baseball. And so like when Clemente died, I mean, it was like, I guess it was kind of like my Kennedy moment. You know, I remember where I was and everything. And I said then, I'm going to name my son after him. Then after he died, I needed someone else to follow, and Hank Aaron was getting hot. And everybody wanted to be Hank Aaron at that time period, because Clemente died in December 31st, 72. And in 73, Hank Aaron hit number 714, Then that was that off Billingham, I think. And then 715 off of Downing. And, I remember saying, okay, that's the name, Aaron Clemente. But yeah, I admired both men. One, because Clemente was everything that he did and overcame, and, being, a Latino like myself. And then Hank Aaron with everything that he went through.
You recently saw a couple games in Southern California. You went to a Padres game, you went to an Angels game, you went to a Dodgers game. How was that experience?
Well, I'd been to all three of those ballparks multiple times. It was pretty cool because what had happened is I turned 60 years old in April, and my kids, as a gift, took me to all those games. And my son went, so I got to go to Dodger Stadium. I love Dodger Stadium with my grandson and my son and all three of my daughters and my wife and my daughter-in-law. And then we watched the game there. Next day we went to San Diego, and they got the room, I think it's number 1833 at the Omni. If you ever go, you got to stay in that room, man. Because, the Omni's hooked to the ballpark, and I love that ballpark. It's an incredible ballpark. And I was laying in bed in the middle of the night, all of a sudden my room lit up, turned purple, and I looked, what the heck? I looked outside, and they lit the stadium up. I love Machado. I hope Soto wakes up here pretty soon, but it's just a fun experience. The fans seem to love the team, and the Gaslight District right there. We went out afterwards, had dinner after the game, walked around. It was just a lot of fun. And the Angels, I hadn't been there since my son was like 10, and I've been to so many ballparks since then. It felt so dated. I was sort of thinking, I can't believe Ohtani and Trout play here. It does just seem so dated, so 70s.
How many current fields have you been to?
I think I'm missing 12. Last I counted, 12.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to get those out of the way this year. And I've been to the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton. And the first time I went there, I was really surprised because nothing was behind glass. I mean, Jim Brown's uniform was sitting there on a hanger. You could just reach over and touch it if you wanted to. I was just surprised nothing walked out of that place. Last time I went was like 2 years ago. Everything's in glass now, but it's worth the trip if you have the time. And it's worth it. It's not as nice as Cooperstown, but it's worth the trip.
I don't know if anything is going to compare to Cooperstown. Pulling off of the highway onto Main Street, you see this giant tree, and it's like, oh, maybe this is where I need to be. And then you go into town, and it's just one road right through, and it's like you're going through. You're in a DeLorean, and you're going back in time, back to when everything was pure and golden and absolutely amazing. I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to when the kids get older and more appreciative of it, to go to Cooperstown with them, to see.
I haven't been since 1984. And I remember specifically the year because of Gooden. I remember Gooden was just electric. Him and Strawberry were so much fun to watch, because I remember that being their rookie seasons. But anyway, I haven't been since 84. I'm thinking about going this December because I've always wanted to go in the wintertime when nobody is there and walk in the snow, go into the place I have it to myself. And now that I'm kind of associated with the museum, I might be able to get behind the scenes and check out some stuff that they don't normally put out.
How did you get involved with the museum?
Well, I dabble in social media. I had never done Facebook before, and then this guy told me about a Facebook page that was trying to retire number 21. So I met a couple of people on there, and then they started talking about memorabilia. And I posted a couple of pictures. And then a week later, I get a message on Facebook, and this guy tells me that he runs the Roberto Clemente Museum, and he wanted to know if my collection was for sale. And I said, no, No, I'm sorry. And he said, well, I would make it worth your while. I said, well, the stuff that you're asking for, I don't think I'd ever find again, even if I had $1 million. I said, and unfortunately for you and my wife, money doesn't mean much to me. It doesn't motivate me in anything that I do. So offering me money doesn't work. So then his name was Dwayne Reeder. Dwayne asked me if I would consider loaning to the museum. And I was like, geez, I live outside of Seattle. You're always on the other coast. I don't know that I could do that. I didn't know this guy. I didn't know anything about it. And then I've told my wife about it, and we've been together since 1980. We just had the 43rd anniversary of our first date was last week. So we've been together a long time. So she says, so let me get this straight. The Roberto Clemente Museum is asking to show your toys. And all I've ever heard about is Roberto Clemente. And you're going to say no? It's locked up in the bank, and it's locked up in a safe in the garage. Nobody ever sees it. She goes, honestly, I'm like, no one really cares but you. She goes, why don't you let other people see it? So I called Dwayne back and I said, well, okay, I can fly in next week. And what do you want? He gave me a list of things that he was interested in. And we flew there, and it was crazy. He and I hit it off. We finished each other's sentences. We liked the same things. And it was just really, really odd. He's like I'm 5'5" and he's 6'4". So we're kind of like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of thing. You know what I mean? So he and I, we got to be pretty good friends really, really fast. And he's really included me a lot in the museum and made me a part of it. And I've really been appreciative. I've had some incredible experiences working there with him. He called me and said a couple of years ago, he says, hey, I know you love Juan Soto. The Nationals are going to be here. Can you come help me? So I flew in, and downstairs at the museum, they have a winery. It's really, really cool. Have you seen photos of it?
I have. Yes, I have.
Okay. So they have a wine club, and if a player buys a barrel of wine, he gets his own type of wine he wants. And they put his logo on the barrel. So there's a club of major league players who all have barrels there. And as they visit through town, they can sample each other's wine. In the back of it is a cigar lounge. And they sit in there and smoke cigars. They drink wine and talk baseball and life and stuff, and then get away from, paparazzi and autograph seekers and people wanting selfies. They can just go there and hang out. And I got to hang out with Juan Soto for a night. It was really cool. He was a super nice kid, just, really well-mannered, polite. I mean, I was impressed with him as a young man. It's really cool when you get to meet people and you find out that they're real people. And I think in that atmosphere, they can just be who they are, not have to worry about, what they say or what they do, just be themselves. I've also got to meet some of my childhood heroes because of that, like Manny Sanguin. I love Manny Sanguin. I mean, he's precious. Okay? He is the Panamanian Buck O'Neill. I would love to see him and Kevin Millar together have a show. That would be hilarious because Manny is just funny. He'll tell you stories about his two favorite Robertos. Obviously, Clemente was his best friend, and Duran, who he partied with in Panama as a child.
Interesting.
Manny was a professional boxer as a teenager, and he became friends with Duran. He told me, he says, you go clubbing with Roberto Duran, nobody bothers you. And then Steve Blass, another super nice man. Al Oliver. Who else? Dave Cash. Bob Robertson. Richie Hebner. I just missed Gene Clines, which really sucked. He died right before I had a chance to meet him. I have his jersey he wore in the 71 World Series, and I was hoping to get him to sign it, but he died like a week before I got there. It was really sad. But I got to meet those guys that I idolized as a kid growing up, and it was just, it was just so cool to meet them and have lunch with them, drink wine with them, get to know them as people, and find out that they were actually more cool in real life than I dreamed they would have been. If you told me that I would party with Manny Sanguin one day, I'd say, you crazy. So the museum has been an incredible experience. I mean, I get to go in there and play with amazing things. Like the first thing I did for them is I cataloged their entire bat collection. So, Honus Wagner, Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, and then every player that goes there seems to feel, for some reason, to show up with a bat that they donate to the museum. So if you go downstairs, there's Pujols bat that he used did home run with. I think it was like number 658 or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's covered in pine tar. It's just laying there on a table downstairs next to the wine bottles. Then Aaron Judge donated one he hit 10 home runs with in the season. He set the record. They're trying to photo match that one now.
That
There's
last
Mike
year.
Trout, Pete Rose. I mean, just so many incredible things there. I left the hotel and went to the museum to catalog some stuff for them, and I got there and they left me a text message saying the coffee's on downstairs. I go downstairs, and right next to it is Roberto Clemente's 1971 World Series MVP trophy, just sitting there. Like, you got to be kidding me, right? So I picked it up and I was like, why the hell did they leave this just sitting out like this, But then later on, Dwayne comes in. He goes, "Oh, I thought you'd enjoy that," and he put it back up. So he took it out for me to have with my coffee. So for a Pirate fan like me, especially with that team and that guy, it's kind of like fantasy land for me. I love the people there. They're all great people. They're all super nice, all very, very passionate about the Pirates and Clemente, and just very genuine, sincere people.
How long have you lived in Seattle? I follow the Mariners based on, me growing up and ESPN always showing Ken Griffey Jr. And the story that I heard about why he wears his hat backward was just something that totally made me fall even more in love with the guy, even after he played, video games and shoes and just his style and being that personality that he is.
Was his dad's hat or something like that?
His dad's hats were too big, so he put them backwards, and it stuck.
And, my favorite players are Aaron and Clemente, but in terms of seeing a player from beginning to end, he was the best. I mean, crazy things. I was at the very first father-son game. I was at that game. In 95, I sat in left field. And the ALDS Game 5 when he comes racing around on Edgar. Now, that series belongs to Edgar. Everyone thinks it's Junior, but Edgar was the star of that show.
And he was held out of the Hall of Fame for so long, and he was just such a clutch hitter. I get the argument that he wasn't a defenseman, that he wasn't on the field, but he was one of the best hitters of his era.
I went to a show in D.C. I flew out there, and just to get his autograph on Game 5 ticket, right? And get away from my house a little while. But all these guys came in, they had entourages and everything. They're wearing 3-piece suits. Mike Tyson's there, and he's got bodyguards and the whole bit. And there's Edgar sitting there eating a hot dog in a velour tracksuit by himself. It's like, it was just so Edgar.
Your Instagram account is Annie Savoy's Toys.
Mm-hmm.
What are your top 5 baseball movies?
And there's a lot of good baseball movies. Let's see. Probably The Natural. I'm an old guy. It's too late for me to come back. I'll never be Roy Hobbs. Bad News Bears, which is
the original with Walter Matthau.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that, but I had a thing for Jodie Foster for a little while when I was 11. So
you mean Tallulah? You like Tallulah?
Yep.
Hey, I know my pop culture. I know Bugsy Malone.
And then Bull Durham. I love Bull Durham. Susan Sarandon. I've always thought she was hot. She's never hotter than anything in that. I mean, she's perfect in that. And then 8 Men Out. I love that one too. John Cusack was really good in that. And Martin Sheen. That's just no, Martin Sheen was it. Charlie Sheen. And then maybe The Rookie. All those movies, other than the Bad News Bears, I mean, they have an emotional tie to them. And that's one of the things I like about baseball. It's got that hook, the connection to people and places and time. So
you're a collector and you show your items on your account. We did talk about your collectibles, but let's talk about stuff that you've had for a while. What are some of the coolest things that you have aside from those cleats of Hank Aaron's from his last season?
Here's, you see that? That's Roberto Clemente's 1971 Latino Player of the Year award. So I don't know if you can read it or not, but it's in Spanish. But it's pretty cool, and I put it up with pennants and stuff because it glows, because it captures all the light. So there's that, and then obviously my Clemente rookie. Then I like things that are tied to moments in time, so I love tickets. So here's a full Game 7 in Baltimore. You see that?
I can, yeah. 1971 World Series.
Yeah. Wow. That's the there's 6 of these on the Popper report. This is the highest graded one that exists. So, fulls are hard to find. I have 4 of them. I have games 2, 5, 6, and 7 full. I'm trying to find the others, but those are top.
Have you been to any World Series games yourself?
Yeah, I was at the Dodgers in Game 6 when they played the Astros. It was 30 years after Hershiser, and Hershiser was 80. So was that 2018?
So 2018, yeah.
2018. My wife asked me if I was going to go to a World Series game, and I said, no, $1,000 for the bleachers. Are you kidding me? I was at work, and she sent me a text message with a picture, and it was her feet and a laptop, and she bought me a ticket. So we flew to LA the next day, and I walked to the ballparks. I was by myself, so we only afforded 1 ticket. And I sat in the left field bleachers with a blue mariachi band and had way too much beer and way too much fun. It was a blast. Thankfully, the Dodgers won that. They won that game. They lost Game 7, but they won that one. So that's the only World Series game I've actually been to. So there is. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's 3,000th hit. That was his 3,000th hit in 72. His last hit. So
his last game.
Yeah. Well, he played one more game after this. He played a defensive inning, but this was his last at bat, last hit. I think Clemente's finally getting his due. You had the 50th anniversary of the 71 team, 50th anniversary of the 3,000th hit. Now you have 50th anniversary of induction. So he's been in the media more. I won't be surprised if he retires a member this year, to be honest with you. When it comes to Clemente, my standards are pretty high.
Okay. All right, I'm going to hit you with that trivia question.
Go ahead.
And this is an old one. Shoeless Joe Jackson played for one team before he played for the White Sox.
Spinners?
Do you know that team?
The Indians? Okay. Well, Blackie Schwamb could have been a star pitcher, but he had a drinking problem and he liked to run with gangsters. And in the off season, he murdered somebody in a bank robbery. It was a stick up in a gas station. He murdered a doctor. And he was in the major leagues when it happened, and they wound up sending him to prison. He became the greatest prison ball pitcher at Alcatraz.
Mike, I thank you for your time. This has been amazing getting to talk with you about baseball. Stories galore, memorabilia galore, and just getting to kind of see the face behind the account.
These are game used Clemente, Stargell, and Mazeroski. So there were 18 players who played a position and had an at bat for 71 Pirates. I have a game used bat to every one of those players. Then this.
Which one of the 3 is the heaviest?
Of these 3, the Clemente. It's 38 ounces. My Manny Sanguine is like 39 and a half ounces. He swung a pole. Then this is different here. So have you ever seen this newspaper? So I had a guy reach out to me. His father worked for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. This is what they used to make that paper.
Oh, man.
This is what on the rollers that shot out those newspapers. Isn't that cool? That's obviously
awesome.
I don't know if another one exists, but they probably made 2 or 3 for the rollers, because it's a big newspaper. But yeah, but if you tilt it, you could see it. I mean, I showed this to Steve Blass, and he started cracking up.